We're on episode 8 of the Disruptive Love podcast, and I'm David Bennett.
And I'm Jonathan Bennett.
Our goal is to positively disrupt the bad in dating and relationships. So please join us by subscribing to this podcast at disruptive.love and following us on Twitter and Facebook at Disruptive Love, one word. Also, thanks to Joshua Wagner, who's producing all this and making everything look great. Today we have Jesse Peterson on our show, a 24-year-old consultant and writer from Washington, D.C., who's been documenting her mostly bad dates throughout the last few years on her website, Tinder District, tinderdistrict.com, where she also has plenty of dating tips and lifestyle and current event content. She and her journey have been featured in a variety of media appearances, including on the Huffington Post and Under the Beltway. We are excited to have you here today, Jesse, and we want to hear a little bit about some of your dating adventures.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Can't wait to share.
So the first thing is, we might as well just get deep into it right away. Why did you decide to start sharing your bad dates with the world? Or all your dates, I guess.
Yeah, not all of them are bad, which is good. Well, a couple of years ago, I graduated from University of Virginia in 2015 and was in a relationship at that point, so that ended when I moved to D.C. And I lived with two girls. We were all consultants, and they traveled for work every week. So I found myself at home alone a lot during the week while they were away. And so, like, going on Tinder dates was a good way to keep myself engaged, to go out. I'm a pretty social person, so I always wanted to be out hanging out with people. So I went on a couple of dates, and there wasn't anything, like, life-changingly awful. But there were certain aspects of things that were a little bit off, like a guy who paid with a coupon on the first date, told me what I could not order based on what the coupon said. Wow, what a guy. Still Snapchats me. And then a guy who ordered my dinner for me, a guy who made fun of me for wearing contacts and said that he was genetically gifted. Just a lot of weird things. So I've always loved writing, and I was working in audit at the time, so didn't get to do a lot of creative stuff at work. So I started writing down my dating adventures in a blog, and it took off from there.
I could not imagine someone ordering food for me because, like, I'm really strictly like a weird low carb and low calorie, and I think I would probably not eat what was ordered for me. How'd you respond to that when that happened?
I was kind of weirded out, and I was like, he ordered a bunch of seafood dishes, and I don't like seafood, and I was like, oh, I'm not really a fan of those. And he goes, oh, just try them, you'll like them. So what ended up happening is that I drank the full bottle of wine and got wasted and didn't eat anything, and he ate the food, and then we never saw each other again.
He ate your food too?
I mean, it was like tapas style, so he just ate everything, and then I drank everything.
Well, at least you both ended up with something that you probably both like, so at least something positive.
I mean, in the age of food allergies, especially with seafood, I mean, that could literally kill somebody. Yeah. I mean, what a ridiculous thing for him to insist on.
So those are like mildly kind of bad dates. Are there any that have been outright awful?
I went on one where I was catfished by a guy who looks just like Beans from Even Stevens. Like straight up catfish, used someone else's pictures, and also just wasn't a good conversationalist. Ended up inviting me for a second date to brunch in Annapolis to meet his parents. Which I had to politely decline. And I'm sure there have been others where I just, like, after one drink, I'm just like, oh my God, I cannot be here 1 second longer. There's been one where the guy was so weird that I said I had to go to the bathroom an hour in, and I just left. He was so creepy. He kept, like, coming around to my side of the table and, like, whispering in my ear, and I was like, just don't touch me. Go away.
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean, I this whole catfish thing, I mean, I get why people catfish if they're going to keep it electronic or they want to scam or whatever, but, I mean, he met you for a date. I mean, how did that go over when a different person showed up?
So since I knew that I was writing a blog post, like, I didn't want to immediately call him out. I wanted to go with it and see where the story went. When I called him out after the date, he was like, well, I just wanted to get a date with you, and I didn't think you'd go if you knew what I actually looked like. And I was like, what? But he's a weird guy. He still contacts me sometimes to let me know his relationship status, which I do not.
I was like, is it single? Is that what it is, or
like soul crushingly single? I mean,
So
When he got into a relationship, hey, just so you know, I have a girlfriend now, so I must not be that terrible of a person. And then a couple months later, when they broke up, he texted me, "Hey, I'm single again if you want to hang out." I can't.
so that's when his body pillow broke up with him. Then is what you're saying.
I'm sure.
if he's listening, it's all in good fun, man.
It
It's all in
is,
good fun.
but he's catfishing
Yeah.
like that's ridiculous. So he deserves everything that he gets at that point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So have there been some positives in there then through all these dates?
Oh, absolutely. I'd say I'm pretty easy to get along with. So most dates end up going at least reasonably well. I swear, though, in 2017, I couldn't catch a second date to save my life. And 2018 has just been the year of, everyone wants to marry me. I don't know what it is, whether it's just, a sign of the apocalypse or I changed my skincare routine. So this year has been mostly positive. It's just when you get into those second, third date scenarios and you start to peel back the outer layers that someone displays on a first date, that things get to be okay, well, I don't actually want to pursue things any further.
So now you said that you've had more second dates. Is there an app or a platform or anything that you think has worked better for you, or ones that you like, or ones that you absolutely hate?
I think Tinder right now, even though it's in the name of my blog, has largely fallen by the wayside. And if I do use it, it's because I'm bored, and the responses are all immediately trash, and I always regret opening it. I'd say that Hinge probably is the best app for actually going on dates. The guys seem to take things a little bit more seriously. There are always exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, Hinge works pretty well. And the other app that I really use is Bumble, just because Hinge only lets you 10 people a day, and Bumble can then be that backup where it's just okay, well, no, I wasn't done swiping today. Let's keep going.
So, since you've gone on so many dates from these apps, one of the things that we've been encountering lately among clients and in the media is that people just are kind of sick of dating apps. Seems to be people are kind of getting off of them, and we know a lot of people who, they've been single, they get on online dating apps for a week. Women in particular we've talked to, they get on there for a week, they absolutely hate the experience, they get off, and they just meet people through the traditional means. You think you'd still be on these apps if you were not blogging about it?
I think I would be, and I absolutely some of the dates I write about are guys that I've met in person. I try not to discriminate because, hey, I host trivia at a couple bars a week. I go to a lot of work happy hours. I'm always out there, and I do meet a lot of guys in person. But at the same time, that's people who I would run in their same social circles, who do the same things I do. And one of the things I really like about dating apps is it gives you the chance to sort of hang out with people who you wouldn't run into, like someone who's a student at GW or who's in med school and doesn't get a lot of time to just go out with his friends, but can absolutely do a happy hour on a Monday. So I really like the breadth that sort of adds to the dating pool.
Do you see a difference in quality at all? I don't want you to judge people too much here, but in terms of percentage of the effort, the percentage of people you engage in person versus online, is there a difference in the quality, you think?
Regardless, you don't really know anything about someone until you actually start meeting them. So one of the concerns that I have come up a lot for my friends and for myself is oh, well, on a dating app, this guy could be totally weird. I don't know if he has friends or anything, but when I meet a guy at a bar, I also don't know that. I know that he has this one buddy or his two buddies that he's out with. So the engagement, I definitely see yes, if we've met in person, I know what you look like. I know what your voice sounds like. I kind of know if we have some sort of chemistry. So if we hit it up in a bar, then we'll probably end up going out afterwards. Whereas if we match on a dating app, I'll probably go out with 10% maybe of the guys that I match with. But overall, there's not too much of a difference in quality because these are really the same guys who would be at a bar or who would be on an app.
That's interesting. That's good your experience is so positive, and maybe being in maybe a more of a major metro area, you do have a larger variety, a lot more choice. So,
plus, I think, the online thing, there are a lot of people for the online behavior allows them to justify some of their worst sides. Even a guy who would, online, he might send a junk pic, for example. Only a sociopath would do that at a bar. You know what I mean? So I think the downside of online dating is that it allows people to dehumanize others, like with the catfishing thing. Someone pulling that, it just amazes me that they would catfish you when they're actually going to meet you later and expect you to be okay with that.
Shocks me too.
So we got a question. So reading your blog, do you go out to like just date are you looking for like something long term, or do you just enjoy the process of dating? Do you like the going to different places, getting free meals, things like that? Or are you actually looking for something long term at this point?
It's very much changed over time. The tagline of my blog, as I named it and did all the initial work 3 years ago, is exploring the city one free drink at a time, because I was new to the city and it was a really great way to sort of try out new bars, meet new people, but do it on someone else's dime. Over time, that has definitely changed. I've had a couple of relationships over the course of writing my blog, and right now I'm looking to move to California in the next year, 6 months to a year. So I'm definitely not looking for anything serious at this point, but I still love connecting with people. I love making friends, and so at this point, I'm not looking for anything serious. I'm also only 24. And very career oriented, very focused on the blog. But at some point down the line, yeah. And I've had a lot of friends who have met their significant others or their people that they're going to marry from dating apps. So I think as long as you set expectations and you maintain open communication, it's just as easy to meet someone for the long term from a dating app than it was to meet them in person back before these were a thing.
Now, do guys ever do guys ever go in probably maybe expecting something a little different than you expect? And so do they ever get upset that they take you out and then they find out your goal is
more casual?
Yeah.
I feel like that hasn't really been the case with a lot of people. I also think that if that was the case, they would not be upfront about that reason. Because guys, especially my age, tend to hedge and be like, I didn't care anyway. I didn't like you anyway. Toxic masculinity at its finest. I think the thing that happens more often is that even though I'm not looking for a long-term relationship, I'm also not just looking to go out with someone and then sleep with them. If I want to do that, it's very easy to do, but that's not usually a guy that I'm going to go spend 4 hours at a bar with getting to know. So I think a lot of the time a guy will ask on the first date, or if he asks before we even meet, what are you looking for? That's a guy who has an agenda, and that agenda is typically just to kind of hook up once and then never talk to you again.
That's interesting. I actually like your perspective on this, in the sense that a lot of people get on these apps or even dating in the real world, and they're like, I got to get married right now. And I like your perspective that you're young, you are going to just go out and have fun. And I know a lot of people get upset at that at times, like, well, I was led on or blah, blah, blah. But I would love to see more people, honestly, take the attitude that I want to meet people. I think if you get on there and your goal is, I'm going to get married from this app today, you're just going to have all sorts of pain on the app. Whereas going in there with the attitude of, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to meet new people, then they actually might meet someone they want to marry with an attitude like that. So I really like where you come from on this, because I've met way too many people who are ready to, bring the engagement ring on the first date.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I went on a gentleman named Cheeseman, this is code name on my blog, who I went on 3 dates with back in March. After the 3rd date, I wasn't feeling it, and he told me, he was like, I just got out of a 6.5-year relationship, but don't worry, you're not a rebound. I've already hooked up with a bunch of random girls. I was like, okay, I'm still a rebound. That's just an emotional one this time if the other ones haven't been so. And then he's talking about, I was like, hey, I'm not interested in taking this any further. You seem like a great guy, but I just don't feel a stronger connection. And he was like, you don't have to make any decisions now. Like, I've set 6 months as our like soft decision deadline for making things exclusive. I was like, buddy, 6 months out, I'm dating 5 other guys right now. Like, so that's where you definitely need to back off. I just think that you shouldn't, if he was going into our 3rd date with that, like, what was he going into our 2nd date with? What was he going to go into our 6th date with? Like, that kind of attitude really just throws me off, because I think, and that guy was 22, like, we are young. Like, we need to explore, or else you're going to end up for the rest of your life in a marriage that, like, hopefully works out, but if you never got a chance to spread your wings, you might feel some resentment there.
Well, certainly the stats show that if you get married, I think it's before 26, the divorce rate is very high. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely true. So I do have one question. You mentioned that, you know, we deal with some guys who do have this kind of nice guy attitude that, you know, you take a girl out for dinner, she at least better give you a 2nd date, you know. So our recommendation is more, you don't spend a lot of money on a 1st date, because, you know, we know that if a girl or a guy like each other, it doesn't really matter where they eat. You know, if the girls that we know girls that like guys who will pay their meal if they really like them enough. So what's your view on that? Because there might be some guys, I'm sure, that do balk at the idea of an expensive 1st date if they don't know the person. I
am totally a drinks on the 1st date kind of girl, because if you don't know someone, I don't want to commit to spending a dinner with them, because I've been on so many dates where it's like after or during drink number 1, they say something very offensive or very racist, and I'm just like, okay, I don't want to be hanging out with you anymore. Your time is valuable to you, my time is valuable to me. Why should we spend more time if we know it's not going anywhere? And then you, as you said, get into that where it's just like, oh, you owe me something, whether that's yeah. 2nd date or it's to sleep with you. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not going to do something just because you spent like $50 on me and you think you deserve it. No, that's unfair to both of us. And honestly, like, we should be honest, but like $20 for drinks, that's totally fair. That doesn't leave me feeling like I owe someone anything. And if you think that I owe you something after you spent $20 on 2 drinks with me, then you have other issues.
Well, it's good to hear you say that, because, you know, we know a lot of guys that go into it with, I'm going to go into this, you don't even know them, and they're spending like $100 meals on a girl they don't even know, and then shocked when that doesn't buy the level of attraction and connection that they want, which, like we said, I don't know of any guy that would suddenly become attracted to a girl just because she buys him dinner, but so that's good to hear you say that. So what, I noticed on your blog you have a lot of great dating tips. I was reading through some of them. I really liked them, and I'm reading through that here right now. One of the ones you mentioned that I really liked was this idea that if you swipe left on someone, you then swipe right on the next 5 to make yourself more open to a wide variety of people. And that's kind of been something we've noticed, is that online dating takes people into this weird, super choosy mode. Like, they may have a crush on a guy in real life or girl in real life who is, you know, not the standard they hold online. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think people get into that mode online?
I think people get into this mode just because you have seemingly an endless Rolodex of people now in your pocket, between so many different apps. And so it becomes this thing where you can be talking to someone or go out with them and be like, oh yeah, well, they're tall, they're cute, they have a good job, they went to a good school, we got along really well, but they like sports too much. And so it's just like, no, like, in no world would you just like meeting a guy in college and dating him where it'd be like, oh no, he likes sports too much, so I'm just going to break up with him. But now it's just like, every single person in the world is in my phone, so I'm going to find someone who checks all the boxes and not make any compromises, not expect their personality to change at all. And I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
Definitely, like, I wouldn't say, and I don't go too far outside of what you're looking for. I wouldn't suddenly, I'm pretty tall, and I wouldn't suddenly be like, yeah, I'm going to give this guy who's 5 inches shorter than me a chance because it's something I wouldn't normally do. But if it's something like smaller to budge on, like, yeah, maybe you can discover a new passion of yours, or like grow and change, and that's always a good thing.
We were joking the other day that we were doing some math and figuring out that if a woman's looking for a guy who is over in like a more of a semi-rural area, if she wants him over 6 foot, has a college education, good job, not overweight, and is single and likes her back, there literally may be 0 men that meet all those requirements in some areas. Because
especially if her radius he has to be. We had a guy we know, he was rejected because he was 20 miles away and she demanded someone within walking distance. So, I mean, it's like the more you create these barriers, like when you add 10 miles away to your scenario, there might literally be 0 people within a 10-mile radius if you live in the middle of nowhere.
Well, because you mentioned I think the stat you give is that only 15% of guys are over 6 feet, for example. And I think the college educated with bachelor's degree, only a third of men have those. And I think 70% of men of all the population's overweight in some way. So if you're looking, I mean, literally the stats are getting slimmer and slimmer.
Pardon the pun.
No pun intended there. The more you narrow it down. So it literally could be that you're looking for someone who doesn't exist. And so that's why we agree with you. We tell a lot of our clients, look at people you know in real life, like maybe you have a crush on a 5'7" guy who works at Burger King, but you're demanding online a guy who makes 6 figures, who's 6 foot tall, for example. And you also mentioned too, and I like this, you mentioned, let me read it here, you mentioned talk to new people. You talk to 3 attractive people a day was what you listed on that, I think it was a Valentine's Day challenge. Why do you think there's so much resistance to that? Like just being open and engaging people?
It's definitely the online dating culture, but people are so scared to talk to people in real life. It's really upsetting, honestly, because I host trivia and guys will come up, bring up their answer sheets, we'll smile, we'll like flirt a little bit, and then at the end of trivia, I always stick around for a beer in case anyone wants to talk to me or has any questions. I'm always like, wow, I really hope that cute guy comes up to me who's been like smiling at me all night, and then just leave. And then the next day I get like a direct message on Instagram that's like, hey, I had a really great time at your trivia last night. Like, you're really pretty. I'd love to go out sometime. And I'm just like, why? You were in front of me. You could have asked for my phone number. I'm not going to like not give it to you. I'm not mean. So it's really crazy. But it's honestly pushed me out of my comfort zone because I know this happens. And so I'll find myself in the reverse situation where I had a super cute spin instructor recently, and after class I was sweaty and disgusting, but he was standing there and I was like, Jesse, this is the reverse situation that you usually have. You do not go talk to him. You will hate yourself forever. So I chatted with him and we had a really great time, and I wrote a blog post with him in it, and then his girlfriend DM'd me, so that didn't go so well.
Oh, yeah, that didn't go so well.
But at least you tried.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, we as guys, we understand. I mean, it really is, from a lot of guys' standpoint, talking to a woman in that context is hard. A lot of guys, would find that, I think,
the anxiety,
and I think it's funny because we've known women who will be like, well, I went up and talked to this guy, and it took all the energy I had, and it just drained me, and what if he says no, and all that, and we're like, hey, that's what we have to deal with on a daily basis. I mean, it's that level. So did you lose respect for that guy when he didn't say anything in person and then sent you a private message? Did that kind of ruin the deal for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, this actually happened last week. I was sitting in a bar just writing a blog post, and there were 3 guys next to me. I ended up chatting with one of them. We talked for probably 30 to 45 minutes. And then he just left. And I was like, okay, well, I wasn't that attracted to him anyway, so I'm not super surprised that he didn't ask for my number. Then he DM'd me and asked if we could go out. And I literally asked him, I was like, hey, why didn't you ask for my number when you were sitting next to me? And he said, oh, I was just like in a rush to leave, and I wasn't thinking because my friends were there. And I was like, Bro, I was also there. You weren't in a rush to leave. You literally like dilly-dallied, didn't talk to me for a while, got up and just left. You had to drive, so I know you weren't that drunk. Why are you lying now? Just like say that you were scared. And then I ended up telling him that I was interested. We were in a conversation. Why can't you just like take the next step?
I mean, it really is a lot of extra work to go, and especially if there's stalking involved, finding this person, then sending them a message. And, I mean, it really is very crazy just how a lot of the efforts people will go to avoid talking to someone in person.
So would you recommend then in that case, a guy just put it all on the line? If you've been talking to him for 20 minutes, you're building that connection, just put it on the line, ask for the number, and if you say no, just accept the fact that he did it versus this complicated messaging later.
Oh, for sure. And I'm not advocating that just like you're a guy at a bar or something, you just go up to a girl and like accost her and ask for her number, or like thrust your business card at her. Which
Yeah.
But like if we're already in a conversation, if I've been engaged for 20 minutes or however long, that obviously shows some level of interest on my part. That's a perfect time to sort of ask for my number versus it's even weirder and I'm put off. I'm like, did I say something wrong? If you just leave and don't ask for anything.
Well, that's how we got into doing this. It was related originally more to social skills, because a lot of people, and we originally worked with guys, we found that a lot of guys, they are really clueless about a lot of this.
Yeah.
So, they might think that they are doing the right thing, that you don't want to be asked out. So by going and finding your Instagram and messaging you, they might think, well, I'm doing the right thing.
Because I don't want to impose upon her there, because I can tell you too that what's going through the guy's head is, well, the last girl I did this to said no, and that she had a boyfriend, and she probably just wants to be friends, because in high school I did this, and the girl told me she just wanted to be. I mean, so there's a lot of stuff that's going through their head, but you're saying just go do it, you'll respect them more just for trying. So that's really good to hear. It's good to hear you say it, because we say it and they don't listen.
They get offended when we say it. It's like an affront to their manhood or something. Yeah. But and even like what you talked about in the beginning comes down to social skills. Ordering for someone like that person's a child, or handing them a coupon and saying you have to order this. I mean, that's just a level of cluelessness that we find hard to fathom. But yet a lot of guys might be taking notes. Oh yeah, I can take a coupon, and it might seem good in theory. I mean, I don't know how it could seem good in theory.
I'm going to get these coupons out of my pocket, because that was my plan.
That was his dating strategy for tonight, so I'm glad he talked to you.
So go ahead.
Sorry. No, it's just a lot of my guy friends, my readership is actually 55% male, crazy enough, because guys read it and they're just like, Jesse, you've taught us so many things like to not do. Like those are things that we always did before, and hearing your perspective on it has made me change my behavior, and that's really all I can ask for. I just want to make the world, like I'm very resilient. I just want to make the world a better place to date for those people who maybe take rejection very personally, or aren't as resilient.
Well, why don't we end on this?
That's a great goal.
Yeah, we're running out of time. So why don't we end on, since you mentioned, it's actually a good transition here. What are some of the best tips? Let's maybe give a couple for men, one or two for men, one or two for women that you would recommend that someone trying to make this dating scene in 2018 work. What are some of your best tips?
So my biggest pet peeve for guys in the last couple of weeks has been when you're setting up a date, please just say, are you free Wednesday evening to get drinks at X bar? Like that gives me a chance to say either, yes, that sounds great, or I'm actually not free Wednesday, or that bar is a little bit out of my way, but how about this other time or this other place? That is so much easier than saying like, yeah, we should meet up this week, and then putting all of the effort essentially on my end. So that would be my number one tip for guys. My second one, and I just did a whole video about this, but put things in your bio that I can connect to, that a woman can connect to or like ask questions about, because I've seen so many guys who either have nothing, or they just have like their Instagram handle or their Snapchat name, and it's just like, do you want me to add you on Snapchat so you can send me a dick pic so we can never meet up?
Probably they do, yeah.
So those would be my 2 main tips for guys.
Those
And
are
on my
great,
blog,
yeah.
I do have like a template for anyone to use for their dating profile. You literally just replace things with your height and your name and your favorite bar or whatever. It's so easy and it takes 0 seconds. So those would be my 2 tips for guys. For women, I would say keep an open mind. Like, there are so many girls I know who are just like, oh, yeah, he asked me out for Monday, but that's The Bachelorette, and I just, like, I can't miss an episode. Okay, Hulu exists, On Demand exists. If you're going to complain about being single, then you have to at least put in some effort to go out and meet up with these guys rather than just being like, oh, yeah, it didn't fit exactly what I wanted. So that would be rule number 1. And then tip number 2, I would say, if you're going to ghost someone, or if you have a bad date, and I guess this applies to both genders, don't just ghost them. Like, it may seem hard and you might feel mean sending that, hey, I had a great time, but I just don't see this going anywhere text. And the guy will respond, you will literally like throw your phone across the room and make your friend go read it. But it's so much better for both people in the long run.
Those are all
Excellent
great
tips.
pieces of advice. I wish everybody would follow those. I mean, especially the ghosting thing. We've talked a lot about that. And, you know, people, I don't know if they're just being cowardly or they think they're being nicer in the long run, but it's much nicer to cut people off and let them move on than to have them ask what if for like weeks, months. In some cases, we've had people who've wondered for years what happened. You know, that closure is very, very important.
And I call people out all the time. Like, if I haven't heard from a guy, if we had a good first date and then he like was texting me and added me on Snapchat and then all of a sudden just disappears, I will text him and I'll be like, hey, what happened? I have a couple guesses. Like, either you found someone else you liked more or you realized you weren't looking for anything, but I'd rather hear it straight from you. And that always ends up being better. And guys they're like, whoa, you called me out? Like, what? But it's just like, yeah, absolutely stand up for yourself. Because if you're not your own advocate, like, who is going to be?
Well, good for you. We always like making people uncomfortable who do these bad dating behaviors.
Yes,
so good for you for
absolutely.
making their lives a little less comfortable for that brief moment.
Yeah, if you're going to behave badly, you know, I mean, to say, hey, why haven't you responded to me after we connected and we've been talking? I mean, that's hardly rude. Ghosting is the really
Yeah, they're the ones who were rude.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we need to wrap up because of time. This has been really enjoyable. It's really exciting to hear you tell your story and a lot of the tips you had to give.
Yeah, you've dropped some hard truths, but a lot of people need to hear these, especially guys who have trouble. Like I said, they resist it with us because
They listen to women. They don't listen
they
to
do.
us,
So it was good to hear some of those hard truths. And so, guys, if you're watching this, we were not kidding. What she's saying is exactly right. And if you want second dates or first dates, head on over to tinderdistrict.com. And you're on Twitter. Is your Twitter Tinder District as well?
Yep,
Okay.
and Instagram.
Okay, Instagram as well. But don't DM her unless you've already connected in some way first.
Yes. And if you see her at trivia, talk to her, for crying out loud.
That's right.
You can DM me if you're really hot.
Well, there you go. That's always the exception to any DM.
Every guy thinks they're hot, so you're going to get a lot of DMs of people who are not hot.
No.
It's like he thinks his neck beard is very hot. He knows
Yeah.
he's a catch.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you joining us, and we hope that everyone joins us for our next episode, which will be premiering next week.